Now, to create a pivot table, you have several ways of going about it. You can create a pivot table from just a normal data you have, that is from a range, or you can actually create a pivot table from a data you formatted as a table. Okay, and there are ways to go about it. So first of all, let's look at how you can create or insert your pivot table from a table range like this. Okay, so here, let me go to the insert tab here, and I have these two options, recommended and pivot table. So you can check out the recommended, but I'm not going to use the recommended. I prefer to use the normal way, or to create from scratch. So here it's recommended some pivot tables you can get out of this particular data you have here, but I don't want it, so I'll just cancel it and select pivot table here. Okay, so here you realize that I've actually clicked in a particular cell, which is E13, so I can just press from table range, and Excel is able to identify the beginning and the end of your data. So it's not that you want to create the pivot table to cover everything in this particular data you have. So let's press OK. Now you have our pivot table created. Okay, so I'll insert a column before that. And one thing you need to observe is that when you're creating the pivot table, either you put it in a new sheet like it has put here, or you can put it in an existing sheet. So here, there's an existing sheet you have. So you could have put it here, but the default was new sheets. So it put it in a new sheet. That is if you don't specify. Okay, so here, let's go back. And now you want to create the pivot table by selecting just a portion of the data. So I'll go to insert pivot table. Then instead of allowing it to decide for us, I will now select just a portion of data up to, let's say, 30. Okay, up to row 30. So from row 1 to n30, A1 to n30, which is fine. And now you see, choose where you want the pivot table to be placed, new sheets or existing. So now I'm going to select existing. Okay, select existing and go to pivot table sheet that I have here. Okay, so I'll just select wherever I want and press OK. So I have my pivot table created. Right. So now let's observe some few things here. This is the pivot table name is pivot table 15. Okay, tells you have a lot of pivot tables created in this particular workbook. Okay, so that is why you get this particular name. And once you click, this is a blank pivot table, but once you click inside it, you get these two tabs: the pivot table analyze and design. The analyze, you can refresh your data, you can do a couple of things here, right? But you look at those things later on. Then under the design, you can also format your pivot table. Okay, so you come to this as well later on. And once you are still in the pivot table, or you've clicked in the pivot table, you see this field list. The field list for all the columns in your data. The field list for filters that you can actually apply to get some different insights from your pivot tables. The columns field list, the rows, and also the values field list. So once you are in it, these are activated for you, but once you click outside, all of them are gone. Okay, so let's check another thing here. The field list, when you come to pivot table analyze, you can actually deactivate them. So once you click, the field list is gone. Okay, so sometimes if you mistakenly click to deactivate the field list and later you come back looking for it, probably you've actually clicked in a pivot table, you're expecting that the field list will show up, but it's not showing. All you need to do is to come here and click on the field list and you get it back. Okay, you explore these tabs later on. All right, so that is also how you can create a pivot table by selecting a portion of your data. Now, let's look at when you decide to actually start from the blank sheet. Okay, so let's go to insert and pivot table from table range. Here you start from the destination that you want a pivot table to be, and go and pick the data you want to use for the pivot table. So now the table range, that is what you need to select now. So go and select part of your data. Let's say I want to select up to, let's say, 30 again here. And now I press OK, and you have another pivot table created for us. And let's look at the last option, that is creating a pivot table from a table that we have here. So it's the same thing, the same approach, very simple. All you need to do is to come to the insert pivot table, then from table range, look at these options here later on. So from table range, and our data, our table is actually named. I've named the table datasets. Let's look at the name here. So on the table design, table name, we have datasets. Okay, over here. So by default, once you create a table, the names are table 1, table 2, and etc. So if you don't want that name, you can actually name your table, right? So because I named my table and I decide to create a pivot table, this table, once I click and go to from table, it knows that it needs to focus on the whole, all the data in this particular the table. So it selects the table name, right? So it captures every data in there. Okay, so from where to keep it, maybe existing worksheet. So I come here and maybe place it here. Okay, so press OK. And also you have another pivot table created for us with the field list and all the tabs there once you are still in, but once you click outside, you don't see, as I said earlier. So this is how you can create your pivot tables in the different ways you can go about it. All right, thank you for watching, and see you in the